Housing demand to skyrocket by 300,000. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your cup of coffee and let's have a look at this article from realestate.com.au which is discussing a huge surge in housing demand on the horizon. Now, the reason why I think this is important is because we're going through the construction apocalypse at the moment, where many builders, particularly those servicing the spec home sector, residential spec homes, are going under. A lot of them are going under. From all sizes, small little one-man bands to large, big, well-known, well-established companies. Now, the problem is, if demand for housing shoots up, but our capacity to meet that supply isn't there, what's that going to do to housing prices? And particularly as we've got interest rates going up, so people's purchasing capacity goes down, but you also have rents going up and other demands going up, international students returning, people migrating to Australia, migration coming up. So we've got these things here which are providing support to the housing market, and you've got a whole bunch of people hoping that it'll come collapsing down for housing to be affordable. And we also have a political class that use housing as a tool to stimulate the economy. And you've got a whole bunch of voters that don't want their housing to become more affordable. Sure, they may say it. They may say they want housing to be affordable. Oh, I want, our young guys to get a shot. But they don't really, guys. I mean, come on. Politicians as well like the wealth effect. They want Australians to feel wealthy, so they spend more. It keeps money flowing. So let's look at this one, guys. A flood of 300,000 active home buyers could be about to swamp the property market. New consumer research indicates a flood of 300,000 active home buyers could be about to swamp the housing market. Research conducted by realestate.com.au. Okay, now this is realestate.com.au research, so we've got to understand it's realestate.com.au research. Showed 1.6 million Australians are considering selling a property. And the latest seller sentiment survey found 28% of them want to list within the next 6 months. That equates to 608 possible vendors. But the most interesting finding from the latest research is that half of the pool of potential sellers want to buy their next home first. Okay. Now here's another consideration for established homes. Now, we've got changes coming into the National Construction Code. These changes are becoming more and more onerous every year. You've got all of these environmental requirements, energy efficiency requirements. Now, they're designed to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of housing, but they're also designed, among other things, to assume that all these spaces are air-conditioned. Something might be air-conditioned even when it never will be. So that's adding costs to these buildings. Often that isn't necessary. We also have livable housing requirements, which is adding costs to the housing. So it's estimated that these new changes coming in the construction code are going to cost or increase the cost of new builds by $30,000 a pop. Okay, so there you go. You just have suddenly a cost increase of 30 grand for every new built house. What do you think that will do to the established houses? It'll make them more attractive because you don't need to deal with all this bullshit, but also it'll put support for their price. It'll push them up. $30,000. Funny how that works, guys. This is why you really have a choice. Do you want to have more regulation for environmental benefits, or do you want to have housing that's more affordable for more people? Because you can't have both, guys. That's the reality of it. It's just getting so onerous. It really is. So, anyway, if that eventuates, housing markets around Australia could be imminently inundated by some 300,000 active buyers and motivated home buyers, the research indicates. Prop track economist Angus Moore said, it had been a busy year already for property markets, including during the traditionally quiet winter period. Across the first half of the year, we saw more new vendors in capital cities come to market and list on realestate.com.au than any year since 2015. Winter is usually a quiet period for property markets. It was also pretty busy this year. We saw more new listings across winter this year than had been typical in recent years. Julia Bentley, Market Research and Insights Manager at REA Group, said the seller sentiment survey showed motivations had shifted on the back of rising rates and slipping prices. Last year, sellers were motivated by strong buyer demand and prices. This is still a motivating factor for 43% of the vendor market, but increasingly, sellers are looking to sell due to personal circumstances. The opportunity to upgrade their home, capitalize on both an increase in their equity and an easing of buyer competition when looking for their next is also a strong factor. Even if housing drops this 20% that many are predicting, I think 15% over 2 years seems to be the common argument here, you're still going to have a lot of people that are still doing really well. Because it's bullshit, honestly. You can sit there, buy a house, do nothing, and boom, in a few years you're up 100%. Housing can make more than people's jobs in Australia. So, this is demonstrated by 1 in 2 sellers searching for their next home before selling their current one, Ms. Bentley said. The research showed an increase in the number of sellers who think it's not the best time to sell a property, up 39% in the June to July period compared to 29% in the previous 2 months. So yes, the heat is starting to get out of it. The FOMO isn't there anymore for buyers. The result is consistent across states, but higher in New South Wales at 43 and Victoria 44, where home prices have slid the most in recent months. This has led many to delay their immediate plans, but over the next 6 months, we're likely to see sellers continue their activity in the market, Ms. Bentley said. Mr. Moore said selling conditions had tempered from the very strong levels seen earlier, I'd say insane, in the year, but remained positive overall. Buyer demand is still much stronger than in 2019, and homes are selling quicker than they were pre-pandemic. And while prices are now falling in most places, they're up strongly compared to pre-pandemic levels, meaning many vendors will have significant equity. Further, the seller sentiment survey found that of those planning to sell in the next 6 months, 41% are highly confident of achieving their price goals. Well, that doesn't mean anything. That just means they could be overconfident in achieving their price goals. Ms. Bentley said there'd been an increase in the number of potential sellers who aren't sure if it's a good time or bad time to sell. So a bit of concern there. So, well, let's have a talk about this. So, 300,000 additional buyers, but 600,000 properties eventually going onto the market. And this is just established home buyers, many of them looking to flip and move and upgrade or maybe downsize. What do you reckon, everyone? Well, the FOMO, the crazy times, it's definitely over. It's done. That's peaked. That wasn't normal. That was just nuts. Are we going to see a huge calamitous fall in property and there'll be many opportunities? I don't know. I think if anything, it's going to be a bit boring. It may, go down a little bit, and we'll see the banks and everyone make these predictions. But sadly, I think the government, will do everything they can to maintain the status quo, because frankly, that's what most people want. All the other talk it's just bullshit, honestly. It really just is. Maybe I'm getting too cynical, guys. You tell me. What do you reckon? Hey, Mortgage Keeper, it might become reality. It's pretty much what shared equity is. Anyway, thanks for watching. Check out my other channels, HeiseBim, HeiseSays International, for other topics and content I create. And if you're a fan and want to support the channel, you can financially on YouTube or Patreon, using our referral links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve or AussieBroadband, buying our merch, or calling us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next episode of HeiseSays. I'm sure that 200,000 new immigrants coming to Australia, I'm sure that'll have an impact on housing as well. We'll have to see.